you everyone for being here. As always, we are super happy to host the session number 8. Today we have a wonderful speaker. So thanks, Sarah Rose. Sarah has been a dietitian for almost 24 years, the last 13 of which she has been the dietitian for the Manitoba HIV program, a role that she loves. Sarah is grateful for the relationships she is able to build with clients and values what her clients teach her. So as always, we are going to pass a free test. So folks who are online, please answer the free test. Cheryl is sending you the link. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Some information that's different.
Hello? Hello?
Do they complete? Okay. Number one and the 15. So Sarah brought us amazing information material for you to take home. For people who are connected online, we are gonna share it by email with everyone. Sarah will send it as always. Thank you. Okay, Sarah, all yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm not that far. Thank you. I'm not very good at technology.
No.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm a dietitian at the HIV program, so I work out of both Health Sciences Center and Nine Circles Community Health Center. I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that the places where I work are located on Treaty 1 territory, the homeland of the Métis Nation, the traditional territories of the Cree, Ojibwe, Ujikri, Dakota, and Dene people. And I want to express my intention around learning about the historical impacts of colonization and the current impacts, and working towards better understanding, recognizing my own biases and privileges, and working towards truth and reconciliation within my role and in my personal life throughout my life. So today, the goals that I thought might be helpful for us to set out in chatting today about nutrition and eating and self-care and living well with for people living with HIV or STDs. I thought we would focus on different things we can do for self-care, for our well-being, and also identifying times when it might be helpful to seek out either healthcare professionals or a dietitian to get more support around challenges we might be, challenges that people might be example as you're working with people in the community. I wanted to take a brief moment, not brief, but I wanted to take a moment to just pause before we start to talk about self-care and health behaviors, because I think it's important to acknowledge that our society puts a lot of pressure on people to manage their health as if it's their own sole responsibility. There's media messages often making it seem like our health behaviors are the only thing that affect our health, and that it's our fault if we have health problems, which isn't true. I wanted to share this slide to remind us that there's many factors that impact our health that aren't in our control. And that's not to say that what we do to care for ourselves isn't important or doesn't have value, but it's just to help us be realistic about how much impact we can have and to allow for self-compassion when, despite our efforts, we do encounter health issues or challenges with our health. Everyone will experience some form of health issue or disability within their lifetime. And I think that our society tries to project this idea that that's not to be expected, and that's not true. It's important also, I think, to acknowledge that there's systemic barriers that prevent some groups of people from achieving their full health potential, and that these barriers need to be identified, challenged, and removed, and replaced with new ways of doing things that allows for equitable access to health for everyone. There are still benefits though to doing things to care for ourselves, whether it's to improve how we feel today or and today in this moment, or maybe to help improve or reduce our risk for other health issues in the future. We don't have full control, but there are things we can do to help us be well today in this moment. And these self-care activities are what we're going to focus on while we're chatting today. So self-care. I thought I'd open it up for questions to start and just ask, what are some of the ways that people can care for themselves and care for their health and well-being? And like, what reasons might there be that people would want to do that? Does anybody have any thoughts?
What was the question again?
Yeah, what are some ways that people can care for themselves and their health and well-being? That's something you can do.
Listen to affirmations.
Absolutely.
Have a good sleep.
Yeah, good sleep is really important. Any other thoughts?
Exercise.
We call it enjoyable movement, and we'll get to that. But definitely moving our body, right? Being active in ways that we enjoy is supporting of our health. Also, and that the affirmations is part of managing stress and taking care of our mental well-being. And then also the food we eat, getting enough food and eating well can be supportive of our health as well. And all of these that I have listed today, which we're kind of going to focus in on, are different health things we can do to support our health that actually support our immune system as well. So of particular importance for people who might be living with HIV or have STI infections, supporting our immune health is certainly important for that as well. So the first one is just talking about eating well and some of the things that that can do for us. And but I say eating well because it's not eating perfect. There's no such thing as perfect eating. There's no perfect one right diet. I'm going to word diet, but I'm not sure what I'm saying. A little nervous up here and who knows. But getting enough nutrition that helps support our health and well-being and our immune system. You know, there are some impacts of living with HIV virus or other infections that can impact inflammation or may increase our risk of different health conditions that through different health treated lifestyle behaviors or activities we can help to offset that a bit.
Mm-hmm.
The first step around eating well, and like, so we understand a little bit more about what it can do and how it can have an impact. But the first step is really just trying to eat a bit more often in the day. And I go with that lofty goal of 3 meals and snacks as needed, but it might be starting with eating every day or trying to eat twice a day. It depends where people are and what feels good to them. But just working on getting more nutrition, getting enough. We do want to definitely prevent weight loss and make sure the body has what it needs to have strength.
What if we eat backwards though?
What's that? What if we eat backwards?
I have lunch for breakfast, okay, and my breakfast is my supper. Like
Wow.
my cereal and all that oatmeal, because if I eat oatmeal in the morning, I get really tired in the afternoon. So I eat my oatmeal at nighttime so I can like have a good sleep. But yeah, I usually eat my lunch for breakfast, and lunch sometimes happens, sometimes not. But I am eating snacks throughout the day, and yeah, I eat my cereal before I go to bed.
And sometimes it is like smaller, like more snacks for the day and not necessarily a meal, or we can, there's lots of different ways that we can meet our needs. I don't believe in breakfast foods or lunch foods. I believe in eating what you feel like what
Yeah.
you feel good to your body at
Yeah.
that time. And there's, yeah, so it's whatever
And
you enjoy.
sometimes, I sometimes get up at 6, but I'm not hungry till like 11. You know, and I know that's bad because I'm sugar diabetic and,
Well, but it can be hard sometimes. Like, there's other things that can affect our appetite in the earlier in the day. And so sometimes there are strategies to sneak in the
Yeah.
nutrition earlier in the day when maybe a full meal or something a bit heavier doesn't sit well.
yeah, I
to
gotta
give us a
have
bit of
something like
energy.
really, really light, but even if I get up 6 o'clock and try and eat toast, it's just not working. You know? And it's just toast and butter on it, with nothing on it. And I tried it with peanut butter and I tried it with jam. It just doesn't work.
Mhm. So, and so the question, and so everyone's hearing, like, it's just around when we don't feel like eating first thing in the morning, and but it sounds like wanting to get a bit of nutrition a bit earlier.
Yeah.
Then I lean towards nutritious drink or liquid. Sometimes, and it depends on the person, but sometimes liquids can go down a little bit easier and settle easier than solid foods early in the day.
Yeah, because I have those first and I drink for my sugar diabetes and that's okay.
Does that go in the morning okay?
That goes,
Perfect.
that works all day, so if I need it before bed or when I wake up and I drink one of those and I'm fine, so.
But that's perfect. You're giving
Right.
yourself some nutrition, some energy in a way that you can
So that's
tolerate.
okay if I have a drink and not eat till like 11 o'clock. Okay.
Great.
Can you take the scientific evidence for 3 meals a day?
Well, so the theory behind that is, and maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be 3 meals per day, but the idea is to eat every kind of 4 to 5 hours. So that, because usually it takes about 4 hours for a meal to digest. And so usually around that 4 or 5 hour mark, we're going to start to feel hungry and need more energy. For people, when their meals are further apart than that, it can be helpful to have a snack in between just to carry them over so that, trying to prevent feeling over hungry is that can cause really unpleasant symptoms like lightheadedness, lack of energy, different things like that. And it can also affect our eating later in the day too. So I think the premise is to have people eating regularly through the day to give themselves the nutrients they need. It's also it's really difficult to get all of your nutrition if you're only if you're having 1 meal a day. So by eating more often, that might help increase the likelihood of getting some more nutrition and meeting our needs a bit more. Some folks might do like 5 to 6 small meals a day or snacks or whatever, grazing. Like it doesn't have to be exactly the 3 meals. It can be however you want to spread your food through the day. But the idea is to eat regularly to give us energy and help us get enough nutrition to meet our needs. Okay. Okay. I guess just one more thing to add is just more people living with HIV. When people are taking medications and the virus is suppressed, the recommendations is to follow the same healthy eating recommendations for the general population. The one difference is that people living with HIV might have or do have slightly higher energy needs. So they might need a bit more energy from their food. And then depending on the amount of that, a bit higher protein needs as well. But still getting that from kind of just the regular eating recommendations for everyone. Well, I also wanted to just mention too, because we were talking about like food provides different nutrients. I've kind of talked about some major groups of foods here, but it provides us energy, it provides us with carbohydrates, protein, fat, those are things that we use for energy and then also processes in our body, as well as things like minerals, vitamins, antioxidants, which help in chemical processes and might help reduce risk for different health problems. And also these nutrients help support a healthy immune system. It's important to note that there is no such thing as a superfood. We hear a lot about that in media, and I don't know if you've noticed, but it seems to keep changing which food is a superfood. First it was spinach, but that's like every day now. I heard like that's more common now. And then it was kale, and then it was beef. Like it seems to change. And there's no one food that we have to eat to meet our needs. There's all of these nutrients we need are in a variety of different foods, and we can eat it in all kinds of different ways. And the research that doesn't recommend eating any one specific food, but it does support getting a variety of foods each day to help overall, on average over time, meet our needs. So, I also wanted to kind of mention too, before we start talking about specific recommendations or like recommendations, that just certain foods that might be helpful to support our health and that for sometimes it can be difficult to even get enough food. And so there's some of the recommendations when the media or that about nutrition or healthy eating can be really expensive. And that's not, and that can be frustrating or difficult for folks, but I just wanted to say that by no means does anybody have to do all the different things that we talk about, or it's like that all of the different foods that we might say can be helpful has to be part of people's diet. It really is about doing what you can with what's available to you. And the first step, again, remember, is just trying to maximize the food you have, because all foods have nutritional value. And the first step is just trying to eat more often where we can. I wanted to make a note too that it can be helpful to, like, depending on what people's different supports are, connecting with a dietitian or social worker around different financial and food supports can be helpful. Certain programs like EIA or the First Nations Income Assistance Program sometimes have additional money benefits for special diets for people. And so wanting to make sure people are getting as much as they can from the programs. It adds more is certainly still not enough.
You know, if a diagnosis or like some sort of referral from a dietitian has to be provided to EIA assistance for them to get that.
Like, yes, for the form for EIA, you do indicate a diagnosis on that form. And it's different. It can be for EIA, it can be a nurse, dietitian, physician, different health professionals can fill that out, but there are, they do require that you indicate a diagnosis on there to qualify. You don't always have to indicate a specific diagnosis for the First Nations Income Assistance form. It's more pretext and will be read in a different way. And I just want to mention too that there's many helpful foods that are a bit more affordable, and in the handout that I put together for today's talk, I've included some of those examples. And also for people who might have limited ability to prepare food or store food, make some suggestions around helpful foods that might work for folks that are in experiencing that as well. And just to speak to like the inadequate, like the social safety net and the social programs that are available for financial supports for people who are unable to work for lots of different reasons, is one of those examples of systemic barriers to health that we were talking about a few minutes ago. And I just like, I'm trying to do things, whatever little things we can to try and challenge those systems. And so Nine Circles is working on to put together a statement or a position around food insecurity to help bring more attention to this issue prior to the election that we would be coming in the fall. And so trying to do as much as we can to bring attention to issues in the hopes of making things better in the future. So the first kind of group of foods that I wanted to just touch on that are helpful for supporting immune health are foods that are good sources of protein. And there's some listed here. As I mentioned, people living with HIV might have slightly higher protein needs than people who don't live with HIV. And it's really important because it's important to build all of our cells, our muscles, build hormones, enzymes, and it also brings other nutrients with it when we eat foods that are good sources of protein. So it's definitely something we want to try and include regularly if we can, and of what's available. And I thought I would make suggestions for ways to add these foods in. So things like adding canned chickpeas to soups, or adding black beans to ground beef if you're making that for tacos or for quesadillas or things. Adding lentils to spaghetti sauces or ways to add protein to foods. Adding scrambled eggs to rice, maybe with peas and corn, and making a fried rice to add more protein to some of the foods that we might be having. And adding peanut butter, either to apple, or you can mix it into oatmeal or in a smoothie. It's another way to add protein. Vegetables and fruits are also important for our immune health and provide a lot of different nutrients that have been shown to help reduce our risk of certain health conditions like heart disease and certain cancers. And so thinking about eating the rainbow is what sometimes we'll hear about, eating more fruits and vegetables, trying to eat different colored foods will give you different nutrients. And so thinking of ways to add these in, maybe adding peas, adding stuff to soup a lot, but adding peas into super noodles, adding spinach into a smoothie, adding canned tomatoes into rice can be a way to add more vegetables, or adding frozen berries into a muffin mix to add a little bit more of that fruit. And then the next group that's important for immune health is eating more whole grains. And whole grains give us different vitamins and minerals, vitamins and fiber, which is important for our digestive health, and might also help reduce risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and bowel cancer. So eating more foods with whole grains can be helpful. And that's sometimes just making a switch from white bread or rye bread to 60% or 100% whole wheat, or trying whole wheat tortillas or whole wheat pasta, trying some of the different grains that we've mentioned and adding them to soups and stews and things as ways to add more whole grains and fiber and these nutrients. The next group of foods that's important for immune health and also helps us absorb different vitamins, and like some of the fat-soluble vitamins, or when we're eating different healthy fats that support heart health and might reduce our risk for that. So including more oils in our diet, more fish, really fatty fish. I don't have sardines on here. That's another really great source of omega-3 fat. And ways to add in the heart healthy fats might be adding ground flax into a smoothie or into oatmeal, or maybe adding tuna into a pasta salad, like whole pasta, maybe putting avocado on toast.
Local fish like pickerel and jack,
Yeah, the question was about local fish and whether they're a good source of the omega-3 fats. And I think those fish tend to be more lean, and so they're an excellent source of protein, but I don't think they're as rich in the omega-3 fats as salmon or sardines and the other ones I've listed. That's still an excellent source of protein. Mm. And then the next category of foods is around getting enough fluid. That's really important for a lot of different body processes to make sure we're hydrated. Water is certainly a great option and really effective at keeping us hydrated. Milk also is a great option though, because it provides protein, a bit of energy, and lots of different vitamins and minerals. And if you have any difficulty tolerating milk, there are sometimes products or different things, options to help with improving that tolerance. So it might be good to connect with a healthcare provider or a dietitian. If that's something that you enjoy, that myths because it gives you upset stomach or discomfort. And the amount of fluid we need can vary depending on, particularly for people living with HIV, depending on if they're having any kind of symptoms. Like if people are struggling with anything where they might be losing fluid, like diarrhea or getting through the stomach, then you would need more fluid than for someone who's not having those struggles.
So those are questions.
Yeah.
Right? Two questions.
Okay.
Actually, the first question is, how do you know if avocado is good and what is it supposed to taste like? Avocados are delicious, just gonna say that. So,
You might even be better at answering that question than me. The question was about avocado and how do you tell if they're good and what are they supposed to taste like? My experience, I'm still learning to like avocado, to be honest. You like not too firm, but not too soft. No?
yes.
Yeah,
And
okay.
like
There's a sweet spot that's really quick.
One day, enjoying your avocado, it's gonna go brown. But
Yeah.
if you get it when it's perfect, it's delicious.
Yeah, and so it's kind of a narrow window of when it's best ripeness, but that's how I do it. Is just if it's really firm, it's too soon, but if it's soft, you missed your chance. Please.
And it gets from green to dark green once it's getting riper too.
Okay, so that was letting us know that it goes from green to dark green as it's ripening. That's something to watch for as well.
Yeah, and then the second question was, if you're dehydrated and can't get enough water, what do we do?
Mm-hmm. So, like, if there's any other fluid that you can tolerate better, like if just some people just don't enjoy water because there's not a lot of flavor to it, like absolutely doing, if you can do carbonated water, juice, milk, like nutrition meal replacements are sources of food as well, or you can do things like popsicles. Fruit has some water, like there's some water as well, like there's water in all foods, but also things like soups, jello, like some of those things might help with fluid as well. Is that meeting the need of the question? Yeah, okay. Okay. And so I just don't think drinks with electrolytes, like things like Gatorade and things like that. Yeah, like those are certainly, like they're out there, and it just depends on, like, usually we can meet our needs with water and eating foods and that. But if you're outside in the heat for longer periods of time, if you're active outside, that's one way to replenish some of the sugar and electrolytes that we lose when we're sweating. That's definitely an option. You can even make your own homemade electrolyte replenishing drinks too. I'm gonna try and remember because I had read it and I thought I had it here, but hold on. Did I read it? I think it was something, I'm sure it was like a cup of orange juice, 3 cups of water, and then half a teaspoon of salt is the recipe to make your own kind of electrolyte beverage just to replenish some of the sugar, potassium, and sodium that we lose when we're sweating. That's one way, another way to do it for ourselves as well. I thought I thought it would be good to touch on just reminding ourselves about food safety and making sure that we're being mindful about preventing food poisoning and keeping our food safe. A lot of these are kind of self-explanatory, but what I always like to mention is like even fruits where you're not going to eat the outside or the peel, like fruits or vegetables like squash or cantaloupe or those types of things, it's still important to wash them because when we cut into them, if we haven't washed it, we can be pulling bacteria or things from the outside of the fruit or vegetable into the part where we're going to eat when we're putting the knife into it. That's something that I don't know, everybody always thinks about that. So that was one of the things I wanted to mention. And I want to take a second too to kind of touch on supplements, because there's often questions about supplements. Definitely, it's whenever possible, trying to get the nutrients we need from food is going to give us more benefit, because foods have lots of different nutrients in them, right? And when we're eating a variety of foods, we're going to get all kinds of different nutrients to meet our needs. When we take supplements, often there's just one nutrient, and they also don't give us energy or protein or things like that. So where we can to try and get it from supplements. When people are talking about taking supplements or trying different herbal things, it's really good to suggest that they connect with a healthcare provider, because they can interact with medications. And you can also have too much of a good thing. An example of that is zinc in our diet is important for our immune system. It's one of the nutrients that supports immune health. But when we take large amounts of zinc, it actually lowers our immune system. So again, more isn't always better, and wanting to make sure that we're not getting too much of some of these things. It can also give us side effects when we're having large doses of different things, like too much vitamin C, can give us diarrhea, things like that. So we want to be mindful of how much we're having, because it can add to symptoms or discomfort that we can experience. That said, sometimes people can't get enough from the food that they're eating and might need to correct a deficiency or might need a multivitamin mineral supplement. And so talking with your healthcare provider or encouraging people to talk with healthcare providers about that to better understand what they really do need or may not. Like I said, they can interact with medications too, right? To impact the absorption. So we want to definitely discuss it before we start something. Okay. Sometimes different medications cause side effects, or sometimes living with HIV also causes different symptoms that can affect our ability to take in enough food or use the food that we're taking in properly. And so there's a lot of different strategies with nutrition and foods and different things that different foods we can do to try and help manage and lessen some of these signs and symptoms. I didn't think we had time to go through that today. It's so hard to choose what to include and whatnot, but definitely worth talking to a dietitian or your healthcare provider about any symptoms or signs that you're having, because there may be ways to lessen how much they're impacting you. Malnutrition is another, not getting enough energy from the food we eat and experiencing unintended weight loss can affect our immune function. And it's really important that if people are experiencing unintended weight loss or really struggling with their appetite and to get enough to eat, that they connect with a healthcare provider so that we can try and find strategies to help fix this so that it doesn't lead to more health issues down the road. And there's again lots of different strategies through food and ways of eating that can help try to increase people's intake and maximize every bite or every sip of food to lessen the impact of poor appetite or different struggles with getting enough. I spend a lot of time on food. That's because I'm a dietitian, and and that's where I guess kind of my heart or passion lies. But I also want to touch on other self-care strategies that can support our immune health and our well-being. And one of those is around moving our body more. Always important to check with a healthcare provider before starting an exercise program, just to make sure that it's safe for people to do. But I always, often when I'm talking with folks, I talk about, there's a list as long as my arm about moving our body or being more active and support our health and well-being in lots of different ways. And this is kind of fill the screen with it here. It can reduce our risk for certain health problems. It also just helps with stress and our overall well-being, gives us energy, helps us sleep better, helps our digestive health, lots of different positive impacts of moving our body more. There's one of the handouts I provided was around enjoyable movement or joyful movement is what you'll sometimes see that called. And I talk about it that way because exercise often, when they use that word, it feels like a punishment or a prescriptive thing that for some people conjures up feelings of guilt or like pressure to do a certain amount. Joyful movement is just about how do you feel like you want to move your body today? And if you're tired or you need rest, that's okay. Like there's no requirement to it. It's about what feels good and doing that. And it might be little bits here and there, a walk with a pet, and then I'm jumping to the next thing, so I stop. But it's doing things we enjoy moving our body rather than thinking about it as a prescriptive or punishing kind of activity that if it's not a certain amount, it's not enough or it doesn't count. That's just so not true. Everything counts. And we're able to move around within our abilities too, right? And whatever is okay for us, if everybody's unique in that way. So I thought I'd throw the question out there to the group. What are some ways that people can move their bodies that are fun? What activities are fun, please?
Running.
Oh, I heard running and cycling. Awesome. Mm-hmm.
Dancing.
Dancing, absolutely.
Hula hooping.
Hula hooping? Love it.
Swimming.
Swimming? Absolutely.
Oh,
I think skipping is a valid form of transportation.
Skipping? Absolutely. So fun.
Deep worded.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And jump rope, that made me think of that.
what about yoga?
Absolutely. That builds muscle and also relaxation.
What about things even like gardening?
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's moving, bending, stretching, using our muscles, right? I'm sore the day after I'm in the garden the first time, right? Like, yeah, what do you do? But yeah, it's a workout. Even housework, right? Like our different vacuuming, carrying roads, like all the different things where we're using our muscles, we're moving in a way that's bending, flexing. Those are things that are keeping us strong, flexible, and it helps our cardiovascular fitness, which helps keep us independent for as long as we can. I think it's here. Let's see. I had to put walking a dog in because we got a puppy. Now my thing that I like to do, but also like bowling we didn't touch on.
Trampoline.
Swimming.
Trampoline.
Oh, I didn't hear. Sorry.
A trampoline.
A trampoline. Absolutely. So fun. Definitely fun. Like in sports too, for people who enjoy that, but no pressure to do that, right? It's if you love to run, awesome, do that. But if you don't love it, you don't have to. Or if you can't do it, it doesn't mean that you're not doing enough. Right? I went to like soccer in my 40s and really enjoyed it. And then I killed my knee and can't play anymore. And it's, it's a bummer. So you have to sometimes switch gears too, right? And I was not good at soccer, but it was just fun. But you switch gears and find new things that you enjoy. And you decide if and what you will do on a given day based on how you feel and what will feel good to you. It shouldn't feel like a chore. Okay. So other ways we can care for ourselves, it's finding ways to manage or cope with stress. Too much stress can lead to challenges for people's health and well-being. It affects our immune system. So finding ways to try to slow down, be in the moment, and be present, and whatever it is that you enjoy to do that. Some people enjoy baking, not a thing, and a party baker, and doing everything, or forget something, but singing when there's someone not no one's around, I like that a lot. But just finding what you enjoy and trying to do it more often. And also paying attention to how we talk to ourselves and what our internal dialogue is towards ourselves. There's research, I'm not going to be able to quote it, but there's definitely research that supports the benefits of self-compassion and thinking about noticing when that voice that I'm speaking to myself is being very kind and checking that. And then maybe reframing that a bit. And it comes back to the positive affirmations that were mentioned earlier as well. Like really taking care of ourselves in that way too is really important. I think like meditation, relaxation techniques, yoga, tai chi, there are some other ones, and then something calm breathing. That's something that I find really helpful, and that's one of the handouts that I shared today. I talked about one strategy for calm breathing. There's different ones. I kind of like the 4 square where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. And you just take moments to kind of ground and be in that moment of breathing. It does slow down, it settles down some of the stress hormones and that. But my kids learned in school the flower candle breathing. So it's smell a flower, blow out the candle. You're breathing into your nose and blowing out through your mouth with intention. And that's another way to do it too. And actually, when I do that, I think about this. Flowers smell. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting into it a little too much, but it's just another. If it's a visual, that might be helpful. So just a thought to share. Sleeping is also and getting enough sleep is also really important for our health and well-being and for supporting our immune system. Most people need 7 to 9 hours per night. That's kind of an average. And not getting enough sleep is a stress on the body, so it can have an impact in the longer term. Things like the joyful movement we were talking about can help improve our quality of sleep. That's another one of those benefits. And if sleep's a challenge, definitely encouraging folks to connect with health providers to see what can be done around that. I'm not an expert, and I know that, but there are some things we can do to create a positive environment and different things to set the stage for good sleep. But sometimes it's more complicated than that, and connecting with a health professional is important. And one of the resources I shared today just had some of those tips around sleep as well. And then it's just a couple of quotes around self-care. We're finishing up. Oh my gosh, we're on time. I thought for sure we would get through. Taking care of yourself doesn't mean me first, it means me too. That really spoke to me because sometimes people are caregivers for many other people and have trouble finding time for themselves, and it's that reminder, right? We have to care for ourselves in order to be able to provide that support to other people in our lives. And self-care isn't selfish, and it's an act of love towards ourselves. Just thinking of it in that way and giving ourselves time to feel that. There's a bunch of references. They're also on the handout too. And thank you.
Do you have any questions online? Or how we look at an application for that for the which that
Yeah, like for EIA? Yeah, so the question was about filling out the form for the nutrition allowance for EIA. It's called a special diet allowance, or therapeutic diet allowance, and it needs to be done every 2 years. They want to prove it for more than 2 years. So if it's been that long or longer, definitely want to call your health provider and let them know. Because, yeah, because they won't extend it past 2 years.
Some people prefer their boiled food. Is that good to have boiled food like all the time or?
Like boiled food is fine. It can help make it like, softer, which is easier for some people if they're chewing. I can say like if you're boiling vegetables, sometimes you'll leach some of the nutrients out into the water, but then using that water to make a super stew is a way to kind of get those back. If you know, if that's something that people are doing a lot of, that might be something worth doing, is taking that water and using it for a super stew. And then that gives you those vitamins and minerals back.
Is there any other questions? Ask the question. One is related to, she mentioned in one of the slides that food also helps with the medications that people take. Can you explain a bit about that? And the second one is currently there are a lot of research that says every step counts. Meaning that it's not about running marathons, it's just move, like every step counts. So,
Okay, so the first question was about how food impacts medication. So, so some medications need to be taken with food to improve their absorbability. So that's one way. Also, sometimes taking medications with food helps to lessen the digestive upset that can happen from them, as long as it's a medication that you can take with food. And that's certainly something that a pharmacist would be able to tell you is if it can be taken with food or not. But those are two ways that food can impact medication. Also, not so much food, it is more like certain supplements can lessen absorption. So being mindful of that. So that was you're talking about food. And then in terms of steps, yeah, I think it's like what we were speaking about around moving more. It's however you want to do that though. Like when we're talking about joyful movement or moving in that direction, I like to talk about measuring our movement maybe more in time than in steps or miles. Like trying not to focus as much on something that's competitive. Like but for some people that really works. Like it just depends, right? Other people that is kind of frustrating or discouraging. So you know yourself that and what will work for you. But certainly you don't have to count your steps. You can absolutely just I did 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there. Like, and it does add up like that through the day. It doesn't have to be for a certain amount of time all at once. And so that's what that's kind of speaking to, right? Yeah, as well, but it's these bits through the day do add up.
Here's what I got this feeling is that people don't understand, like, even just going for a walk around the block. Take care of yourself.
Absolutely. I think we get so much messaging around it has to be 30 to 60 minutes or intensely and whoa, I don't have time for that, or I'm not up to that today. And so then we don't do the bit we could sometimes, right? Like, so it's what feels good, what can I do today, what can I manage? And then we miss it.
Okay, so thank you very much, Sarah.
One more part.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes.
Is the absorption component of the relationship between food and medication the reason why sometimes birth control can also be affected by like supplements and vitamins and minerals, things like that?
Thank you. I'm not as knowledgeable about the birth control medication. Are you saying it like in terms of what impacts the absorption of that?
Yeah,
Or-
I know, I don't know which ones it is, but I know certain like roots, for example, that people take in supplement form can reduce the efficacy of like hormonal birth control, for example.
Not as, I don't know that answer, I'm sorry.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Sarah, for your
Thank
time.
you.
So we are gonna pass the post-it.
You want to break it?
There's a confusion. Sarah, Rebecca just said thank you. One more.
Oh, thank you.
So for people who are online, they're gonna send the. Oh. And Sherry already sent the test.
You done?
Okay.
Greetings.
See you guys.
Bye. See you.
Bye.